Most World Cup goals. Miroslav Klose has 16 career World Cup goals across 4 tournaments. And what makes this record so remarkable is how consistent he was across all of them. He didn't just have one legendary tournament and then disappear. He scored in 2002, in 2006, in 2010, and in 2014. He was still scoring World Cup goals at 36 years old in the final in Brazil. The closest active player to this record is Lionel Messi with 13 goals. And Messi is 37 years old going into this tournament. Even if he has the greatest World Cup of his life and scores 5 or 6 goals, he still might not reach Klose's record. And after Messi, the drop-off is enormous. Nobody else active is even in the conversation. In the modern era with squad rotation, more conservative tactical setups, and the way top strikers' careers are managed, having one player score 16 goals across 4 World Cups is something we are probably never going to see again. Klose's record is safe for a very long time. Most World Cup appearances. Lothar Matthäus played in 25 World Cup matches across 5 tournaments from 1982 all the way to 1998. 5 World Cups. Think about that for a second. He was playing in World Cups for 16 years. He won one in 1990. He was in finals and semifinals and quarterfinals across 5 different decades of German football. The closest anyone has come to matching that in recent times is Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, both of whom are now at the tail end of their careers and will almost certainly not play in another World Cup at a competitive level. For a player to break Matthäus's record, they would need to be good enough to make their national team at 21, stay at the top level for the next 16 years, avoid serious injuries across 5 full tournaments, and still be selected and productive at 37 years old. That combination of longevity, consistency, and quality is almost impossible to replicate in the modern game where the physical demands are higher than ever and careers at the very top level are getting shorter rather than longer. Most World Cup wins as a nation. Brazil have won the World Cup 5 times. 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, 2002. No other nation has won it more than 4 times, and Germany and Italy are the only ones who have even reached 4. What makes Brazil's record particularly extraordinary is the era in which some of those titles were won. The 1970 squad is widely considered the greatest international football team ever assembled. Pelé, Jairzinho, Rivellino, Tostão. That team didn't just win the World Cup. They redefined what international football could look like. And Brazil have consistently produced world-class talent in every generation since. But here's the thing, Brazil haven't won it since 2002. That's over 2 decades without a title for the most decorated nation in World Cup history. Germany won it in 2014. France won it in 2018. Argentina won it in 2022. The competition has never been more spread out and more competitive than it is right now. For Brazil to move to 6 titles and truly separate themselves from a chasing pack, they are going to need everything to go right. And they haven't been able to make that happen in over 20 years. Most goals in a single World Cup tournament. Just Fontaine scored 13 goals at the 1958 World Cup in Sweden. In a single tournament. 6 games. 13 goals. That is an average of more than 2 goals per game across an entire World Cup. And he did it playing for France in a tournament where they finished 3rd, not even winning the whole thing. He scored in every single game, including 4 in the 3rd place playoff. To put this into context, the single tournament record for any player at recent World Cups has been around 6 or 8 goals. Harry Kane scored 6 in 2018 and won the Golden Boot. Fontaine more than doubled that. And the reason this record will never be broken is a combination of factors that no longer exist in the modern game. Tournaments had fewer defensive structures in 1958. Pressing and organized defensive blocks weren't what they are today. Goalkeeping and defensive coaching were completely different. And on top of all of that, Fontaine himself was having the most extraordinary hot streak any striker has ever had at a major tournament. Even if a modern striker has a genuinely incredible World Cup, getting to double figures in a single tournament is basically impossible given the way the game is played now. Most consecutive World Cup final. Brazil appeared in 3 consecutive World Cup finals from 1994 to 2002, winning 2 of them and losing 1 in between. And that run of sustained excellence at the very highest level of international football is something that no nation in the modern era has been able to come close to replicating. What makes this even more impressive is that across those 3 tournaments Brazil had completely different squads. Different generations of players carrying the same standard of excellence from one World Cup to the next. In 1994 they had Romario and Bebeto. In 1998 they had Ronaldo at his terrifying best before that mysterious illness the night before the final. In 2002 they had Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho in what was one of the most devastating attacking trios ever put together for a World Cup. 3 consecutive finals. That is a level of consistency that no national program has matched since. France came close with back-to-back finals in 2018 and 2022, but that streak is at 2 and counting, still one behind Brazil's 3. Youngest World Cup goalscorer. Pelé scored at the 1958 World Cup at just 17 years and 239 days old, making him the youngest goalscorer in World Cup history. And he didn't just score one quiet goal either. He scored 6 goals in the tournament, including a hat-trick in the semi-final against France and 2 more in the final against Sweden. At 17 years old. In a World Cup semi-final and final. Against the best defenders in the world at that time. The record for youngest goalscorer has stood for nearly 70 years, and the reason it is so difficult to break is that the combination of factors required is almost unique. You need to be not just talented enough to be selected for your national team at 17, which almost never happens at a World Cup, but good enough to actually get on the pitch in meaningful games and then clinical enough to score when you do. Pelé was doing things at 17 that most footballers never do at the peak of their career. And the way modern football manages young players, with careful development, loan moves, gradual introduction to the first team, it makes it even less likely that a 17-year-old is going to be given the kind of responsibility and playing time at a World Cup that Pelé was given in 1958. Most World Cup red cards. This one is less of a statistical record and more of an unforgettable moment that defines what the World Cup can do to even the greatest players on the planet. Zinedine Zidane, widely considered one of the 5 best footballers who ever lived, was playing in his final professional game ever. The 2006 World Cup final between France and Italy. He had already scored one of the great penalty kicks of all time earlier in the game. He was 34 years old and playing his absolute last match as a professional footballer on the biggest stage the sport has. And then he headbutted Marco Materazzi in the chest, received a red card, and walked off the pitch past the World Cup trophy that France would ultimately fail to win on penalties. No player in World Cup history has ever had their final act be more dramatic or more bewildering. Zidane had the chance to go out as the hero who won France their second World Cup. Instead, he walked off early and France lost. It is the most extraordinary ending to a career in football history. Fastest World Cup goal. Hakan Şükür of Turkey scored after just 11 seconds in the third-place playoff against South Korea at the 2002 World Cup. 11 seconds. The referee hadn't even broken a sweat. Players were still finding their positions. And the ball was already in the back of the net. This is the fastest goal in World Cup history by a considerable margin, and it is the kind of record that requires such a specific and unlikely combination of circumstances that it could stand forever. You need the opposition to kick off and immediately lose the ball in a dangerous position. You need the right player to receive it in the right area with the awareness and composure to shoot immediately. And you need the goalkeeper to be completely off his line or unprepared. All of that happening in 11 seconds at a World Cup is so statistically unlikely that even if another goal is scored inside the first minute at a future tournament, getting under 11 seconds is an almost impossibly small window. This record might genuinely never be broken. Most World Cups as host nation winner. Uruguay in 1930 and Italy in 1934 both won the World Cup as the host nation. And since then, only England in 1966, West Germany in 1974, Argentina in 1978, and France in 1998 have managed to win the tournament on home soil. 6 times in World Cup history the host nation has lifted the trophy. And in recent tournaments the host nation advantage has noticeably diminished. Russia in 2018 went out in the quarterfinals. Brazil in 2014 famously lost 7-1 to Germany in their own country in front of their own fans in one of the most traumatic results in football history. Qatar in 2022 went out in the group stage. The combination of home crowd pressure, expectation, and the sheer quality of the modern top nations means that simply hosting a World Cup no longer guarantees anything close to the advantage it once did. The record of 6 host nation wins is going to be very difficult to add to in the modern era of football. Most World Cup goals in a final. Geoff Hurst is the only player in the history of football to score a hat-trick in a World Cup final. England versus West Germany at Wembley in 1966. 3 goals in the most important game in the sport. And one of them is the most debated goal in football history. The shot that hit the crossbar and may or may not have crossed the line before bouncing back out, which the linesman ruled as a goal and which German fans are still furious about nearly 60 years later. But regardless of the controversy around that second goal, the hat-trick stands and it is a record that in nearly 60 years of World Cups since has never been equaled. Scoring a hat-trick in any game is difficult. Scoring one in a World Cup final, against the best goalkeeper and defense a nation can put out, with the entire world watching and the pressure of the moment at its absolute maximum, is something so extraordinary that it may genuinely never happen again. Every player who has come close to a big performance in a World Cup final, Zidane's 2 goals in 1998, Mbappe's extraordinary 4 in 2022 has still fallen short of 3. The hat trick in a final might be the single most unbreakable individual record in World Cup history.